Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the 18th episode of the FPL Wire powered by DreamSetGo. We are podding ahead of the biggest double game week of the season, Game Week 19, and I'm your host Zophar. I'm joined as always by Twitter stats guru, Big Man Bakar. How's it going, Big Man?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zoph. At this point, before we begin, I'd like to mention that all our listeners and viewers, we're on 9.5K subs, so it would be really nice if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Your support would be appreciated. As far as my game week was concerned, it was a decent game week. I resisted the temptation to play the free hit. I'm on 32 points at the moment. I had double city defense, De Bruyne captain. Um, the fact that he didn't take the penalty at the end was a bit infuriating. Other than that, I still have Smith Rowe and Zaha to play, so I'm hoping I can cross the 40 mark, which I think is a good score this week.
What were your moves, Bakar?
I sold Kilman, Calvert-Lewin, and Bissouma for Smith Rowe, Martial, and Stones
Good
for a
long term
4 point
moves.
hit.
Good long term
Yeah.
moves.
Yeah.
I think especially got rid of Kilman, now you got a solid option there in your squad. And so,
Oh wait, I actually sold Ailing. I actually sold Ailing. I have Kilman actually. Yeah, I sold Ailing because I saw the news of the Leeds postponement. There were rumors flying around, so I sold Ailing actually. I couldn't afford it with Kilman.
alright, because you wanted to do Sun to Salah the next week, right?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Right, we discussed that. Great. So we are also joined, as usual, by my co-host Lateriser. Decent game week, Ella.
Yeah, nice game week. Got 46 points, net 42, and I have Mitchell to play. I made some risky moves last game week. I sold Che Adams and I sold Grealish, and I sold Mo Salah. The idea was to get Mo Salah back in 19, but I wanted Rashford and De Bruyne in 18, who I thought were the big hitters to have. And United and Chelsea big hitters, United and City big hitters were good players to have in 19 and onwards as well. So that's why I made those moves. Little bit of a gamble selling Adams and Grealish, but there were murmurs about the Saints double game week being off, and I wasn't sure about Aston Villa, who we're going to talk about later. So I took that gamble, and it seems to have paid off. Pretty happy with how the game week went. Got around a 300k green arrow, sitting on that -4. At the start of the game week, I'd have taken a grey arrow or a 200k drop, considering I wasn't free hitting. But I think the green should hold now with just one game to go. So happy. How was your week?
Decent. I got 45 points -4. I brought in Cancelo, Saka, and Kane for Kilman, Salah, and Calvert-Lewin. Cancelo was a long-term move, so I have a strong bench now defensively with Dyer and Soufal, so I can cover any benchings now going forward. The other two were a bit of a change in philosophy for me. I think now with the season, everything changing so quickly, I'm going to rather maximize what I can see in front of me right now than plan too far ahead. So I thought these two guys could really do damage, Kane and Saka, with the number of free hit teams they're going to be in. So I got them in with my two free transfers.
Speaking about maximizing what's in front of you, I hope the ladies have noticed Bakar suited up again.
He's in pink
Still
today.
single.
Pretty in pink. I think Bakar is pretty much using our pod as a matrimonial platform now. And Shadi.com, all these websites, there's nothing of it. Bakar just goes and put link to the pod.
No, I mean I got some brilliant reviews last week, and there are a few of our patrons who subscribed, and they particularly wanted me to show up in a new blazer. So I thought, based on popular demand, why not? But yeah, on that note, I don't think I'm even going to be as dressed for my own wedding as I am for this FPL episode that you guys make me do. So yeah, why not?
So we're calling all those sexy pictures that you got reviews now, is it?
I'd leave that up to you.
So let's get cracking on. A quick word about our sponsors. DreamSetGo is a global portal for fans to gain access to sporting events around the world. Accommodation, flight tickets, hospitality, stadium visits, everything can be tailored exactly to your requirements. They also do celebrity experiences, which include masterclasses with your favorite sports celebrity, or something as simple as birthday shoutouts. You can find links to the products in the description below. The FPL Wire is a part of the Fantasy Scout Network, and all stats used in this podcast are taken from the FFS members area. Please sign up if you haven't already.
Also, DreamSetGo is in the midst of tying up with a lot of football clubs. They have some exciting offers lined up. So, in case you want access to their hospitality and travel packages, kindly fill the Google form in the description with your details. Just taking you guys through the agenda and what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be looking. There's been a few fixture reschedules, so we're going to look at that and how that impacts our thinking. We're going to be talking about how long and how far ahead should we plan, a little bit of macro strategy. We're going to be talking about Aston Villa, who have a double game week now, but a different looking double game week in 19. We're going to be talking about chip usage, whether it's worth bench boosting in game week 19, whether it's worth triple captaining in game week 19. We're going to talk about what to do with good single game week players like Son, Kane, Saka, etc. And then we're just going to look at some of the teams doubling in game week 19. We're going to be looking at Liverpool, Chelsea, Leicester City, West Ham, and United. After that, we have our usual fare. We've got Bakar stats, we've got hot fixtures, captains, and our teams, followed by the Q&A. So
Right.
let's dive right into it. There's been a little bit of a fixture reschedule. What's been up, Zoff?
Right. So, to put it in a nutshell, what we have here is up on the slide. Saints and Leeds now have a single game week. It's Leicester away for Saints and Brighton at home for Leeds. Villa's double game week fixtures have changed. The Everton fixture has been removed, so Everton now have a blank. Villa have a double of City away and Newcastle at home. And now Newcastle also have a double, Arsenal away and Villa away. So this
Nice.
is the revised fixture list up on the side. We'll get back to this once we discuss hot fixtures and captains in detail. So let's look
Right.
first at overall impact of this on our strategies.
So I've been thinking about this, and we've seen what now 4 or 5 cancellations and reschedulings in the
Maybe
last
more.
3 or 4
I'm not even sure.
in the last 3 or 4 game weeks. What
5,
what
I think.
this makes me realize is we need to uh, shorten our tunnel vision, play a little more short-sighted, look at just the next 2 or 3 game weeks when we're playing. And like you mentioned at the top, you need to play what's in front of you. You need to get the points on board that are available. And I wouldn't be focusing too much on planning and moving switches, because you what's happening in the game right now is you can get lucky or not so lucky every game week in terms of how the fixture scheduling is happening. So there's no point planning too much, because that plan can quite easily go down the drain. So just focus when you're making your transfers, focus on the next 2 or 3 fixtures. Normally I tend to look at 5 or 6, but just look at your next 2 or 3 and make your moves and just get the points on board is what I'd say.
Agree.
Anything to
Yeah.
add, Bakar?
No, completely agree with that. Yeah, it makes more sense to plan for the mid to short term rather than look too long term at the minute. I mean, 3 to 4 game weeks is a decent sample size to look at for those planning at the minute. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Especially for a
And
double game week, I think you can even afford to maybe look at this week in isolation. So there is upside with certain players, certain fixtures. Like, maybe certain players this week don't have a good fixture in 2021. It still may not be a bad idea. This week, you never know what's going to happen next week.
agreed. And speaking about the little shift that we've had, Aston Villa now have a double game week. But I see a lot of people on Twitter right now talking about bringing Aston Villa players in, or relying on them for their bench boost, etc. What's your thinking with those Aston Villa assets? I'm worried when it comes to the Aston Villa assets. Bakar, any thoughts?
I think Aston Villa they present some good value options going forward. I've been a huge fan of Villa this season, and looking at their fixtures in the double game week. Okay, granted that City away is obviously going to be a tough fixture, but I think there are points to be had in the Newcastle fixture. I think I see that as a comfortable Villa victory. Personally, I think there are points in there for Grealish and Watkins. Hopefully for Watkins, I can't say that with any kind of reasonable assurance, but I can hope for the best, and also for the Villa defense, because Newcastle they're like second worst for away in terms of big chances this season. They're not really an attacking side. We saw that against Sheffield this week. Um, so yeah, I think there are points to be had. And besides another point I'd like to make is that they're good long term options. I look at their fixtures after that. They have Burnley, Southampton, Arsenal, I think,
Burnley,
in the
Southampton,
next three.
Arsenal, West Ham. Yep.
Yeah, and West Ham at home. So I think they're decent options. They're not bad for the value they provide. I think at least one of Grealish or Watkins makes sense, and Emi Martinez in goal is always going to be a strong bet.
Are you not worried about the COVID breakout? I mean, it's been about 10 days, I think, since we've had that breakout. And from what I've
Yeah.
read, it seems like it's been the biggest COVID breakout that any club has had so far. Now, a lot of people mentioned that, Fulham gave Spurs a huge fight, etc. But I think they were far into it. And I don't think the breakout was as big as what we've heard about when it comes to Aston Villa. I think their training ground opens only this Saturday. And my issue with Villa, I was listening to the FML FPL pod, and they made a great point that they have a very thin squad. They're reliant on 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 starting players. They don't really have so much squad strength. So if they lose two or three of their key pieces in their team, how effective is that Villa team going to be? We saw with Newcastle, who had a COVID outbreak of such a huge scale, where we don't even know who is playing. Saint Maxim's still not playing. Different players get affected in different ways, and we just have no information. I mean, the guy you're looking to bring in, let's say Watkins, for example, uh, had COVID, and he got affected by COVID to a stronger extent compared to everybody else. I just feel like it's too much of a shot in the dark. I think it's too much of a punt. So I just say that when it comes to Villa, I wouldn't rely on them. If you own Villa assets, fair enough, but I surely wouldn't be buying Villa assets right now.
Yeah, I'd like to raise another point here that as you pointed out, this is a good point you make about their squad depth, and maybe they will be a bit rusty in their first fixture. But what I like about their double game because they're playing Newcastle in their second game, which is, like almost a week from now, 8 days from now. So I can one can hope that maybe by the time they walk into that game, which is the more winnable game, and that's the game where you kind of expect your assets to get points, they'll probably be back up to speed. And the fixtures after that are good as well. So I can hope that if there's any kind of rustiness that goes away, in the midweek game versus City.
There's one more
Zoff?
aspect also. Now, I think the COVID outbreak is at Villa. I think it's similar to Fulham. It's like 10 people affected at each club now. Another thing you have to keep in mind is now what you're seeing at Newcastle is recovery. Players are maybe able to play one game, but they're finding it difficult to play another game immediately after 2 to 3 days. So if the fixtures are spaced a week apart, you could say, okay, fine, it might not affect them so much. But let's say the City game is obviously going to rely, they're going to have to be chasing the ball a lot, right? They're not going to have much of the ball. And Villa rely on a lot of high energy pressing, especially from the front. Watkins, that's his primary role as a forward, to press a lot. So I definitely think there is going to be some sort of slump. There is going to be some sort of momentum that is going to be derailed. And it is impossible really to estimate to what extent right now we would be guessing. So like you said earlier, I would agree. You hold with what you have. I think Martinez is worth holding purely because he's a good pick long term. He's going to have more doubles to come. And Grealish, again, good pick long term. But whether I would bring in Watkins right now, I'm a bit iffy about that because you have other options like Antonio, who we will discuss later.
Would
So
you even buy a Grealish right now? I wouldn't. I mean, if I didn't own him, I wouldn't, go crazy
you do
about
have to
getting him
keep
in
in
City.
mind he's also on 4 yellow cards. So
Yeah.
he could very much get booked in the City game and miss the Newcastle game. Now the thing is with yellow cards, a lot of people assume it's like till game week 19. It's not. It's to the 19th match of the team play. So now Villa have had two postponements. I think it's up. They might have to go up to game week 20 or 21 for that window to go through. So that's always a risk now bringing in Grealish. And ultimately, Grealish gets suspended. That's going to affect Watkins as well because he's the creative engine of that team.
Yeah.
Yeah, but surely you'd expect that Dean Smith is probably going to have a word with Grealish because he's too influential with the Villa side because he absolutely hate him missing a game. So maybe he'd have a word with him to go easy on the
Yeah,
tackles and
Grealish has no
My
problem with authority whatsoever, right? He's a very obedient guy. He listens to whatever he's told to do. So,
well, one can hope if Diego
yeah.
Costa can listen, then so can
Yeah.
Grealish.
My entire worry is I'd say Grealish is odds on to be one of those guys who has COVID because of lifestyle and everything. So I just don't know. And if you have no Grealish in that Villa team, or if you don't have Watkins in that Villa team who might be affected by COVID, that team crumbles. That team becomes a completely different team. It's like what happens to Everton without a Richarlison and a Luka Dean. I think the extent of how it affects the team is that great. So and there aren't a lack of options in other teams. You want 4.5 million defenders. West Ham present a better opportunity. You want some mid-price midfielders, guys like Suchek present an opportunity. Guys like Harvey Barnes present an opportunity, who also have good fixtures after game week 19 as well. So I just think it's a shot in the dark. I'd look elsewhere. I'm just worried. about Villa at the moment, and I just thought it's worthwhile for us to point that out.
And you'd also like to think it's ultimately Newcastle plus 2 points for most of the
Yeah,
players. And you don't expect them to get much away to City, especially with just 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
of training.
yeah. I do buy Bakar's point. The good thing is that the Newcastle game is the latter game, because I saw that performance Newcastle had recently. They just look abysmal right now. Odds
Correct.
on, like Sheffield United played so well in that game, but Newcastle just have nothing to offer at the moment. I had no idea why he was benching Joel Linton in that game, who's actually looked a little decent, at least much better than what Ryan Fraser offered in that game. Anyway, anything to add on this, or we can move on to the next topic?
I think we can move.
We can move.
All right. So let's talk about bench boosting and triple captaincy. I think we can discuss when we're discussing the
Fixtures. Yeah.
captaincy. What about bench boost? A lot of people own single game week assets like Leeds assets and Saints assets. What advice do you have to give to them, Bakar?
Yeah, so the thing with the postponement regarding this fixture is that now those who own Southampton assets, they're basically, I'm assuming most of the people have McCarthy or Adams in their squad, and like when I look at the fixtures, Leicester, Arsenal, Villa, United, I think the fixtures are tough. So if you have someone like a Che Adams, I would definitely sell him. In my opinion, McCarthy, he's a borderline case, but I'd be tempted to sell him as well for Martinez, because Martinez has more double game weeks coming up, and has a double game week this week. So I'd go towards that. As far as Leeds are concerned, um, they're the likes of Rafinha, Bamford, Dallas, who are in most of the teams that I can, that I come across these days. Bamford, I think, is an excellent option. Rafinha is an excellent option, regardless of the fact whether they have a double or not, because I like their fixture. They have Newcastle next week after this, so I like their fixtures. I won't be selling the likes of Rafinha or Bamford if you own them. I think they're very playable options this week against Brighton, and Leeds are the sort of team which who I expect to score against anyone. So they're playable options this week. Dallas is a bit of an iffy one, because if you have other double game week defenders, then I think he might be worth benching, even though he has good attacking threat. But I don't think Leeds are going to keep a clean sheet against Brighton.
But let's say somebody has two Leeds and two Saints on their bench. Would you tell them to bench boost still?
It depends on the assets they own. If I'm okay bench boosting the likes of Rafinha, Bamford, but Saints, I would recommend selling on bench boost. If you're bench boosting, I don't really see room for Southampton players.
You take a hit to maybe get a West Ham defender in place or something of that sort.
Yeah, or a Villa defender, because they're long-term options. One of those.
Zoff,
I
what do you
think
think?
I think let's have a talk about what the bench boost offers in terms of in terms of strategy thing now. Like you said, I would be very comfortable if was bench boosting the likes of Rafinha, Bamford, and let's say even
Exactly.
Meslier. I'd be very comfortable because I personally don't value the bench boost chip very highly, because there are multiple problems with the bench boost chip. Number one, you can only play, let's say you want to play it in conjunction with a double game week, right? So you have to play your wildcard on game week. Let's say we're looking at 26, right? As the next big double. So you'd have to play your wildcard in 25 to review to bench boost at 26. I'm not sure how the fixtures are going to play out. You might have some guys who have a tough fixture in game week 25, but they have the double, so you might lose out on points there. A. B, you're going to end up loading a lot of points, a lot of money on your bench, which might be useful in COVID season, but still, in terms of structure, let's say from game week 26 to 38, you're going to be running with a heavy bench. You might gain more in terms of the bench boost in terms of points in that week with your double game weeks, so 7 to 10 points. But what's to say that money won't be made up? The savings you make in terms of money that you can be invested in terms of the point gains you'll make in the next few weeks. So I'm very comfortable, in fact, with getting the bench boost out of the way this week.
Do you think that just leads to more long-term game and just don't look at
I mean,
1 week
exactly.
and as
Because you can optimize your squad for the long term going forward. You can look at it with the clear tunnel vision. These are the players I want. These are the strongest first 11. Because the bench boost is often right from the lesser teams. It's not like you're going to be bench boosting your premium players. And I see it's very possible that the likes of, let's say, a Bamford could outscore a Sufal. Brighton. And a Rafinha
Yeah.
could outscore, Dallas, for example, with the attacking threat could outscore. So I think the potential is very much there for the bench boost. And also now I think the triple captaincy option, the appeal has sort of diminished a little bit. You see Salah is a bit out of form. KDB is looking like, he's not looking like a very explosive captain option. Because as we were discussing yesterday in the chat yesterday, Pranil, so like, KDB is looking very tired to the second half of games. We might see reduced minutes. We might see him playing deeper. KDB, it doesn't really seem triple captaincy to material to me the way right now City are playing.
Let's push the triple captaincy debate on the side. I have a question to you. What do you advise to people who I think all three of us are in agreement that even if you're playing Leeds players in a single game week, play them. I think they're a comfort. They have a really good fixture, in fact, this week. So it's fine that they don't have an extra game. You should take into consideration the fact that they have a really good game. Uh, what do you advise people who own a Chia Adams and a KWP, for example? Take a hit, hold them, and play the free hit. What's your thinking, Zoh?
I wouldn't take a hit absolutely because you need the hit to repay this week. And like, definitely don't take a hit with just a view to bench boost because you still might end up losing negatively, especially if it's for defenders. Because you look at Saints fixtures, I think Leicester away is not like, let's say you sell KWB for somebody else, even like a Sufal, for example. There's not necessarily it's going to pay off. You might end up, like as we mentioned before, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You might end up losing a good asset like Wright Phillips.
Got it. And you'd rather focus those transfers in double game week 19 with assets with a higher upside. It's what I do. And I'm in agreement with you when you mentioned that it's a good chip to get out of the way. So that in the future, let's say in 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to be wildcarding, you can focus on 11. The problem there is that the people that are bench wildcarding in game week uh, 25 and they've already used their free hit in 18 now. It's easier for us to say because three of us don't need to focus on bench options, keeping in mind game week 29, which is going to be a blank game week. So we can focus on a starting 11 and that's about it. But doesn't that thinking also come into play for them?
Right, because they'll have to like ultimately worry about game week 29 as well. You'll have to keep players on your bench who have a fixture in game week 29, so you'd at least have some numbers to make up. So that's a
That
good
actually
point.
makes that makes a stronger case for them to get rid of it right now because they'll need to focus on keep one eye on 29 as well. Yeah,
That's a good point.
Yeah, if you're on the edge, bench boost because it's a like Zoff mentioned, you're going to gain long term because you want to spend as much of your money on 11 players. I think now it's a little bit of a different case because of the uh, sort of cancellation and reschedule that we're seeing. I think you need to have one or two decent playing options on your bench in the squad as well from a very strategy point of view because any fixture can get called off at any point. So that's it. But if you're on the edge, get rid of the chip. That's what I'd say.
Right, because like
I completely agree with that.
because you see lots of teams nowadays have like sorry but a lot of teams I've seen now have Rodrigo, for example, like as the cheapest outfield player is 5.7. That's not, you can have a good eighth attacker, but 5.7 is in my opinion a bit too much to spend on your eighth attacker.
Especially when a Suchek is 5.3 or Smith Rowe is 4.3. You've got much cheaper options at that price. Bakar, you were saying.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that a lot of managers, when the news of the Leeds Southampton fixture postponement got announced, they were kind of put off by the bench boost idea. But I think it's a far stronger case now that the Villa game is back on. So there are quite a few managers who own the Villa assets. So I think if it's 50-50, I would definitely bench boost as well because it helps you have a clear vision going forward regarding what you want to do with your team because this week at least presents an opportunity for you to bench boost and there's a good chance that it comes off, which might or might not be the case later on. So if you have the opportunity, then you should avail it.
Yeah, and I don't think the clean sheet. I think mainly for Southampton. I don't think the clean sheet is a complete write-off. Southampton have posted some good defensive stats in the past 4-6 game weeks. I was just looking at the numbers. I don't think it's a complete write-off. So I think you can just afford to play and hope for a clean sheet and hope to get lucky.
I'm sort of hoping that Foster plays. McCarthy, I think he returned to training a day or two ago, right? I think Ralph has said he likes his players at least to have 1 week in training. So I'm hoping I can get a game out of Foster this week.
You're looking to bench boost?
Yep, and we'll get into that because I'm probably going to be having a bench of Son, Dyer, Foster, and Kevin Davies. So it's not too bad. I think just the Spurs guys, they're all single game week guys, but I could see around 15-20 points from that lot.
Have you put Son deliberately on the bench or
because everybody else is a double game week besides Bamford in the first 11.
Oh, fair enough. Strong team indeed.
Yeah. He's I was chatting with him yesterday. He has an option to either sell Saka or Son. That's his dilemma at
Yeah,
the
we'll
moment.
talk about that. So now let's just move around from the bench boost to free hit. A couple of guys have mentioned that, like, why not free hit in this week? What are your thoughts on that, Bakar?
Um, I'm not exactly opposed to the idea, but I think a lot of us own the likes. A lot of FPL managers own the likes of the City players, United players, Villa players, Liverpool players who are likely to have double game weeks or in any case already. So I mean, if in case you can roll out 7 to 8 double game week players, you're perfectly fine because the likes of Bamford, as we've pointed out, Leeds assets, they have good fixtures this week as well. Then there's West Ham who have double assets, double game week assets. So I think it makes more sense to hold the free hit if you have it right now to hold it for game week 29 where you're expecting a blank game week rather than to use it right now because this week even the likes of Spurs assets they have a good fixture as well. So it's not necessary that the double game weekers are you buy on free hit they're gonna outscore your single game week players. So I think it makes sense to hold the free hit rather than play it right now.
I'd agree.
Off?
I'd agree,
You
and
agree?
not much to add from what Bakar has just said.
The only thing is, it's the cliched answer, but it's team dependent. Let's say you have four or five. Actually, it's very difficult to not have a good team for this game week because I'm guessing primarily your premiums are filled with either Spurs, City, United, or Liverpool players. Now, three of these teams have double game weeks, and the one team that doesn't have a double game week has a great fixture this game week as well. So it's very difficult to not have a good team for this game week. So yeah, I was just while Bakar was talking, I was like, there is an opportunity though. If you don't own a Vardy, you don't own a Pulisic or a Hakim Ziyech, or you don't own a Mane, for example. There's some very high upside differentials in play this game week that you want to try buying 30, 40 points outside from the template. There is an opportunity, but for that, like we mentioned, these four teams they occupy your double game week premium players. So I'd say save it, save it.
I think we're on agreement now. While you're on the topic of Spurs players, let's talk about Son and Kane. What's your plan to do? I think Pranil, you have both of them. What's your plan?
Yeah, I have both of them, and I can literally go in any direction right now. We'll talk about that later. But my simple thinking when it comes to Son and Kane is if you're selling them to bring in a captain, if you're selling them to bring in a Mo Salah, who's the best FPL asset in the game, if you're selling them to bring in assets who you think are better than Son and Kane, just not for 19, but for the midterm, then sell them. Because I think the fixture after this is Liverpool. So it's not, if you're looking at a block of fixtures, most of the premiums offer a better block of three fixtures compared to the next two that Spurs offer. So that's my thinking. I probably wouldn't hold on to both of them. I'd sell one and play the numbers when it comes to that. I think there are enough premium assets in play. So conclusion is sell them if you're bringing in a captain for a double game week. Sell them if you're bringing in a player like Mo Salah. Outside of that, it's a 50-50 call.
Who would you keep if you had to choose one? I know it depends on the player you're bringing in, but if you had been given carte blanche, who would you pick?
Son.
You'd like to keep Son. I think I'm in
Okay.
agreement. Bakar?
Yeah, I would keep Son as well. I don't think the Sheffield Spurs game will be too high scoring. I think Spurs are. I don't think they'll run right. They'll win like 1 or 2-0, something like that. But Son away from home, his numbers are generally far better than Kane's because Kane seems to take a more creative role away from home, and Son is the main goal threat. So I think it's if I were to keep one, I would keep Son. Having said that, I own Son. I don't own Kane, and I'm likely to sell Son this week because I don't own Salah, and I think that Salah has a very strong set of fixtures this week. So, um, like the only person I would probably sell Son this week would be for Salah, and De Bruyne. Other than that, I won't be selling Son this week. Let me put it that way.
I think that's a good point. I think two of the main players you have to be targeting this week are Salah and KDB. Now, those guys who probably free hit last week, they'll have Salah back in the team, but I'd wager that a lot of them don't have Kevin. So
Yeah.
I think, like, if you need to get one of those two guys, I think it's a good long term move.
Especially given the fixtures that City have after 19, great run of fixtures.
Precisely. So I think definitely if that those two guys make the case, so that's where I'm leaning towards as well. I'm going to probably be selling Kane for Antonio and upgrading Saka to Salah so I can keep Son. because I'm more keen on keeping Son rather than Kane long term.
Just while
Another,
we're talking, go on, Bakar.
yeah, another point I'd like to raise here that the Spurs' fixtures after this. I mean, you pointed the Liverpool game, but even after that, Brighton away from home doesn't scream too many goals. Then there's Chelsea at home, where I'd expect Jose to adopt a pragmatic approach. I don't see too many goals in those fixtures, so I don't think the risk is as high.
There are two standout fixtures, if you ask me. And if Matip is not fit, actually, even the Liverpool game is there for the taking for us. If you tell me, I think the Sheffield United is a really good fixture. If Matip isn't fit, then the Liverpool game is a good fixture. And after that, Brighton away. I mean, that's on paper a Son game. I think he's a captaincy option for that game,
They're
if
all
you
Son
ask me.
fixtures more than Kane fixtures, right? They're all like counter attack sort of games rather than deep
Except
blocks.
for Sheffield United away. I think Sheffield United suits Kane more. Outside of that, Brighton and West Brom at home as well. I like those games. I don't think it's a bad hold at all. I actually was posing this question. Let's say you don't have De Bruyne and you're contemplating getting in De Bruyne uh, and you own double city defense like me. Do you think it's a bad play to hold Son, forgo De Bruyne, and get a third city defender, considering we are sure that they are the best defense in the country at the moment?
It's a difficult one because every time you see De Bruyne, like even last night, he had three good shots. He had the penalty he could have taken on any other day. Like, and this is a repeating theme with De Bruyne, right? It seems like we are saying this almost every other week. He could have had a 20-pointer. So
I'm not saying De Bruyne is a bad asset.
no,
I'm
but I
saying
understand it's
that
like vis-a-vis, right? Because ultimately we have
yeah,
to every position, every player this season has an opportunity cost. If you're
exactly.
dedicating that third slot on Kevin, you obviously have to get somebody else in defense. So I understand the
Yeah,
point you're making there.
yeah. Because you're losing a Son who's a great asset this year as well. So that's the sort of it. I don't think it's a easy decision,
It's not.
but it's the only thing is what I look at in that case is look at the captaincy that I want in game week 20, 21, 22, and see if I'm finding good alternatives for captaincy to De Bruyne, and then take the call. I think that's when it comes into play.
Because it also depends on which city defenders you're targeting. Now, let's say you already have Diaz and Cancelo, then getting in Stones is not as much upside, right? Stones you're looking at most week like 6 to 8 pointer with bonus. So, no, but if you already have say Cancelo and Diaz, then it changes the game a little bit. You already have the guy who's the most nailed down, and you have the guy with the most attacking upside.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just selling Son though, right? I mean, he could have scored a hat trick against Fulham if you saw the highlights. I mean, he's
And
still incredibly good asset, and I don't quite put De Bruyne in the same bracket as a Mo Salah, in terms of explosivity and all of that. So that's the only.
I think his numbers actually suggest, and I at the cost of repeating myself, I keep on writing and talking about this every single week. His numbers are actually incredible this year for goal threat, for creativity. For some reason, he hasn't been converting the chances that he's getting. His conversion
He's
rate is
shooting
down
straight at the
13%.
keeper. We discussed that.
His
He's
conversion rate is
not.
down from 13% last season to almost 5% this year, which is abysmal. He isn't taking his opportunities, and I still think he's an explosive asset, and I still think there are points to come. Given that he has West Brom away next week and then Sheffield at home in game week 21, I think he's a great captaincy option. There's no way I would go without Kevin De Bruyne and my team personally.
Fair,
I
fair.
agree.
You mentioned that, and I agree. I agree. If put on the spot, I was trying to make an argument on the other side, but I'd have De Bruyne as well over Son for the run in 21, 22, 23. I think there is
So
points
he's
to come.
getting minutes, consistent minutes. That's a big thing in
Yeah,
the City side.
yeah, yeah. But he looks, all three of them, Son, Kane, and Bruno Fernandes, look like they've played a lot of games. They look so tired. They just run out of steam in the last 30, 35 minutes of the games. Like that's something I've noticed amongst three of them, and that's why Liverpool premiums are such an advantage over these three because they've had a 12-day gap, which is like gold in this fixture congestion
Absolutely agree.
period. All right,
Anything else to
let's
add, or should we move to the team talk?
move to the teams.
Right. So first up is Liverpool. Pranil, would you like to walk us through the stats you shared with us earlier?
Yeah, just what I'd like to mention is in the last four games, the other two assets, Mane and Firmino, are matching Mo Salah to a fair extent. When it comes to shots or shots in the box or chances created. Their XG is 1.53 for Salah, 1.67 for Mane, 1.59 for Firmino. Uh, and the shots are 9 for Salah, 11 for Mane, 10 for Firmino. Shots in the box are 7 for Salah, 10 for Mane, 9 for Firmino. So it's not like the other two assets are uh, not matching Mo Salah. I'm I'll talk about my transfer options later, and I don't own Salah at the moment. I did around with not going without Salah, but I've got massively punished in game week 1 not owning him when he scored, uh, I think, a brace against Leeds. Was it a brace or a hat trick? What was it? Game week 1?
Hat trick.
Where most hat trick.
Hat-trick,
Everybody had
hat-trick.
him captain, and I lost 40 points, and I've been playing catch up ever since. So I don't know if I have it in me to do it again. But what this also tells me is that Mane and Firmino are good differentials to have. Maybe not instead of, but in addition to Mo Salah at the moment. And I think like they're a good upside play right now, especially given, like I mentioned earlier, that Liverpool have had a 12-day break. I think that's going to play a big difference. That's going to play a huge importance. And I feel like good differential to have in addition to Mo Salah at the moment.
And also, like what we were talking about in the chat, you don't mess around with your Liverpool and Manchester City slots. We have three slots for those guys. You usually get the best players you can. If you can't get those players, you don't. In my opinion, you don't buy the likes of a Gundogan. You don't buy the likes of, like, say, like, an Oxlade Chamberlain. You get the guys who you feel can deliver the most points. If you can't, don't waste those slots, because eventually, if you want to get more players, you'll have to sell them. So, like, ultimately, if you're going to get one premium attacker from Liverpool, in my opinion, it has to be Salah.
Would you look to add on if you have an option, and would you get a Mane?
I mean, now with Kevin now having the double also and Bruno also having a double, it becomes a bit tricky, right?
Let's say somebody doesn't own a Bruno, and they have to make a decision between a Bruno and a Mane.
If they don't already own Bruno, I have to ask them which game they're playing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Really?
Bakar, anything to add?
Yeah, so I was looking at Liverpool stats this year, and I was comparing Salah and Mane because I'm supposed to do a piece on them tomorrow in my review. So I looked at the numbers this year, and both of them are averaging more or less the same for minutes per shot inside the box. Both average, 34 minutes per shot inside the box. Um, but Salah seems to be doing better for minutes per big chance, as you'd expect. Salah is on 97 minutes per big chance. Mane, for the same ratio, is 115. So Salah is obviously getting better quality chances than Mane. But this gap is not as big as it usually is, because when I compare their numbers, I do it fairly occasionally. Last season the gap was far bigger. This season the gap is a bit less. So maybe Mane is improving a bit and Salah is regressing a bit. I've done a piece on Salah, which I'll discuss later in the stats. But I think it's close. But if I had to pick one, I'd go towards Salah. But I don't think Mane is a bad option either.
The eye test tells me Mane is looking sharper at the moment, but now I think all of that gets wiped off because they've had a 12-day break. So it's like a fresh new start for Liverpool as it's now after that huge break.
Agreed.
I know Zoph is in Salah or nobody campaign. Always. If anybody, do you recommend a Robertson punt? If anybody's going, I think it's a non-question in terms of Robbo was the trend this season. Rob was the clear winner. But would you recommend going there?
Oh yeah, Robbo I think is
No.
a great option. Obviously not as a captain shout, but like as a pick, I think Robbo is great.
Yeah. I own Robertson, and I'm very happy to own him for the coming game week. I think it's a very strong option. I do think Liverpool will concede against United. United's away numbers are really good. They're top for big chances away from home this season. But after that, the Burnley game is that's a clean sheet on paper, and I can probably see some bonus or attacking points for Robertson there. So I think he should get around like 10 points in at least in this double game week.
But again, would you bring
Agreed.
him in just for this week? Now he has Spurs away, right? The week after, and I think even then the next 2-3 fixtures aren't really great. Would you persistently bring him this week if you don't have him?
That's a bit of
After
a tough
Spurs,
question.
there's West Ham away and Brighton at home. Not bad fixtures. West Ham are terrible at home.
I think I probably would. I think I probably would, given his attacking pedigree. I still think he can do damage against even Spurs, West Ham, Brighton. Those aren't bad fixtures in my opinion. I think he's a good long-term option.
I don't.
His competition, if you're thinking about his competition, is City defenders and Chelsea defenders, in my opinion, at the moment, because Chelsea also have a double and they have good fixtures after. City also have a double and they have good fixtures after. So I think that's the thing you need to weigh when it comes to picking.
I don't think they're worth 7 million plus this season. Liverpool defenders.
Fair enough. Considering the other defenders and players, well, I think Robertson maybe just because of his attack.
Attack and third, but
Like I said, it depends on the fitness of the defenders, and if he's fit, then I don't mind it.
I mean, given the
totally
fact that double City defense is a legit option this season, I don't even think moving to back four is a bad idea for FPL managers. I think it could be a viable strategy.
I'm toying it with this week. Okay. Just
I'd
thinking
agree
about
with
switching
that.
to formation. All right, anything to add on Liverpool, boys, or we can move on?
Now we can move on. We'll come back to when we discuss captaincy a bit later.
All right. Cool. Next team. Your
Next
boys,
team is
Chelsea.
Chelsea. Yep. As you guys can see, I've got my new background here in support of my boys. So we have, I think the fixtures I don't think are great for the double, right? Leicester away and Fulham. Now Fulham looked great yesterday. Keep in mind Loftus-Cheek can't play against us. Aina can't play against us. So that's two big players who will be missing for Fulham.
Fulham conceded 2.5 xG to Spurs in the first half. So.
Right, but the keeper is proper good, right? Areola.
Yeah. I think that Fulham game, I think they gave it their all in that Spurs game because I think there was added motivation. And
The siege mentality, what we spoke about.
Exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Chelsea put 2 or 3 goals past them. I've been telling you since a couple of weeks, I've been discussing with you and AK, who's a friend Chelsea fan. I've got a feeling about Chelsea. I think they're the team to go to now, especially since Werner's playing a front. Walsh on FML FPL mentioned this as well. Their fixtures are there. Their fixtures are good. Not just in 19. Their fixtures after, they're really, really encouraging. They read Wolves at home. That's a good fixture for defense. Decent fixture for attack. Nowadays, Wolves can't defend. After that, they have Burnley at home. Again, a decent fixture. I think you all played really well against Burnley earlier in the season as well. And given the creativity that Chelsea has, I think it's a good fixture for them. They have Spurs away after that. Yeah, a little bit of a tough fixture. After that, they have Sheffield United away. I just get the feeling that this is the right time, primarily because everybody's fit now at Chelsea. Chilwell and Reece James are back. People don't realize this because they haven't seen Chelsea play one game and all of it is together. All your new boys are fit. Hudson-Odoi is playing some good football. The entire squad is fit. And if you remember, it's not long ago. It was, I think, 6 or 7 or 8 game weeks ago when all of them were fit. And Hakim Ziyech was fit. Chelsea were playing the best football in the league. They were playing the most attacking football in the league. And just because it hasn't happened in the past 2 or 3 game weeks, people tend to forget that because of the dip in form and all of that. I just feel like it's a good time to jump on Chelsea. And getting Timo Werner back is on my mind, especially because he's playing striker again with Ziyech and Pulisic fit. Kai Havertz also looked pretty decent at that FA Cup game in that number 10 role. I just don't know if he's going to keep that number 10 role.
That's the
What's your
problem.
thinking on
That's
this?
a problem. Like we don't know. Now I could see Timo playing striker. I could also see Timo playing on the wing. Now the numbers we have got up here for the last 4 weeks. Pulisic is leading the way for XG non-penalty by some distance. He's at 1.26, and you have Abraham, Hudson-Odoi, who's at 0.4. So there's a significant drop off. Werner is only 0.2. So in terms of numbers, Werner still hasn't looked too impressive. He got the goal again in the FA Cup. So, but there's no guarantee that Lamps will play him through the middle in these games. He could easily slot in
his
Tammy.
Position in the cup, he played striker, right?
He played striker in the cup, but I think that was primarily, and he played him, I think, even against City in the centre forward position. But we don't know whether he'll do that because I don't think the team is settled as of yet. But this is the front four rather. I wanted to see in the preseason games. Pulisic on the left, Werner in the middle with Havertz behind, and Ziyech on the right. But there are options. You could have Hudson-Odoi play on the right. You could have Werner play on the left with Abraham in the middle. The formation could change with Havertz dropping out. So there's a lot of unpredictability there still. That's what worries me about Chelsea from FPL standpoint.
All right, I know that you're a little skeptical about them in unpredictability, but you're a Chelsea fan. I urge you, somebody like me who's willing to take the risk, who's willing to take the gamble, give me your top 3 Chelsea options because I think I might want to indulge there, and it's nice to have a Chelsea fan's point of view.
Okay, then I think Timo has to be right at the very top. I think in terms of explosive potential, Timo is there. I like Chilwell because I'm a little bit iffy about James playing both games. He's just coming back from a hamstring injury. It would make sense to play James against Fulham and Aspie against a Barnes in the Leicester game. So I think Chilwell probably be the second. And number three, I would actually go for Havertz. I think he's realized that he needs to play Havertz closer to the goal. He needs to play Havertz more of the number 10 role, and he was the one most involved in that FA Cup game.
Nice. Oh, over Pulisic, over Ziyech. Havertz for you.
Pulisic is the problem is, right, whenever the games are close, I start worrying about Pulisic.
All right. Fair enough. Interesting. Good you mentioned that, because I think there are some people who want to go in that direction. And nice to know which assets to you rate.
And
Bakar, anything to add? Chelsea?
Everyone seems to have forgotten about Chelsea, over the past few game weeks. No one seems to, own anyone from Chelsea. So I guess that's potentially the reason. But I agree with you, Lateriser, that I think that they offer a very good source of differentials over the coming weeks. The defensive stats, barring the games against City and Arsenal, have been beyond exceptional this season. So I'm sure there are points to come, especially from a defensive point of view, against the likes of Fulham, maybe even Leicester, and then they have Wolves and Burnley at home. So I can see at least 2 clean sheets out of the next 4 for Chelsea. So I think Chilwell is probably the go-to guy over there. James. I don't really trust his fitness at the moment, so I won't recommend investing in him this game week. Up front, their attacking numbers have been great, but then again, it's very hard to pinpoint who the main guy is going to be, because I can see a lot of points for Chelsea players in the weeks to come, but it's very hard for me to actually assess who the main source of points is going to be. I think Chilwell would be my first pick if I was picking a Chelsea asset, and I'd look at Werner. No one else, I guess. Those two for me.
Right.
Hakeem back has a big impact on Chilwell as well, as we were discussing. Improves Chilwell's goal threat a lot.
Exactly. Far post cross. Yeah.
Either of you guys plan to bring in any Chelsea players?
I'm looking at Werner, but the thing is, if I decide to go Werner, I need to not go for Salah and go for Mane instead. So that's the thing. But I'm toying with the idea. Sitting at 1.5 million, it depends on how ambitious I also want to be this season, and do I want to curtail my instinct, because this season has also punished the guys who've tried to move away from the template every single time. But it depends on how I feel on Saturday morning. But I'm toying with it.
I'm tempted too, because I'd have to sell Kane and Son that way. I'm tempted, but I probably won't go there because I'd rather be a bit late to the party than early.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. Next team we're talking
Leicester.
about Leicester City. Bakar, why don't you kick us off on Leicester?
So Leicester have been the most unpredictable team, in my opinion, to assess this season, because they seem to blow hot and cold almost every week. They have 2 fixtures this week, Southampton and Chelsea. I would assume that the interest for FPL manager would primarily be in the likes of Justin and maybe Vardy. Those are the 2 ones which come to my mind. They're easy holds for me. If you have them, you hold them for the double game week, and then their fixtures after that: Everton away, Leeds at home. I think those fixtures are prime Vardy fixtures. I can see some points for Vardy there. For those of you selling Kane, I think Vardy might not be a bad option. As far as Justin is concerned, I don't really think Leicester will keep a clean sheet in the next 4 games. Personally, I think Southampton will score, Chelsea will score, Everton will score, and Leeds will score as well. So I won't be buying Justin, but if you have him, then I guess keep him.
You have been talking since game week 4 or 5 that Justin might be a short-term option, and here we are in game week 19.
Precisely. Yeah.
He's a top 4 cheap defender. I'd look at buying him if he was in my team. I think he's a good hold for the next 5 or 6 weeks.
He's actually played really well. And one thing which is very bizarre about him, that Rodgers seemed to play, he plays him in every game, whether it's the Europa game or the Cup game. He doesn't seem to miss any games. He's a bit of a machine this season.
He scored a really good goal coming in from the left also in the FA Cup.
Yeah. I saw that, yeah.
I think Rodgers has also settled on a starting 11. I think he had, except for the Palace game where he rotated, because I think everybody is tired and unfit for that game. in the last 5 out of 6 games, he's settled on a front four. Albrighton playing on the right, Barnes coming in from the left, Madison 10, Vardy up front, uh, Castagna and Justin playing as wing backs. So there are some steady options in there, and it seems like that team is settling at the moment. I wouldn't be against buying a Vardy at the moment. I think when it comes to the premier striker slot, it's between Vardy, Kane, and Timo Werner, like we just discussed at the moment. So it's a nice safe option, especially because of that Leeds fixture in 21. Nowadays, whenever I see that Leeds fixture, it just tends to be like, okay, I need to get a player. I think all of us will want to get Vardy in 21 because he's got Leeds in 21 and he's got Fulham away in 22 as well. So they're a decent bunch of fixtures. I'm all for Vardy. I don't mind punting on a Harvey Barnes in the double game week as well. I think he's around 6'5" ish. He's matching Vardy for shots. In the last 4 matches, Vardy has 9 shots, Barnes has 12 shots. In the last 4 matches, Vardy has 9 shots in the box, and Barnes has 5 shots in the box. So he's at the end of a lot of Leicester chances as well, and there is going to be a fair amount of goal involvement. At that price, I don't mind him as a punt with a high upside. We've seen him be explosive in the past as well, so I like him as a pick.
Yeah. We were speaking about the Leeds fixture, and in the reverse fixture, Vardy registered 14 points, a goal and 2 assists and 3 bonus. So yeah, I mean that's the fixture that stands out. Even Everton away, I think that's not a bad fixture for him. I can see Leicester scoring there.
You can't go very wrong with this pick. It's a nice, safe pick. We look for the shinier toy, but Vardy's as good as they come when it comes to a nice, safe, steady pick among strikers.
I have one objection though with Vardy now. If you look at the turnaround between fixtures, right, I think you look at game week 20 to 23, there are games every 2 or 3 days now. I know I have this thing with Vardy that he might struggle to play 3 games a week. So I don't have the fixture list or the timer like up in front of me, but I remember looking at this earlier. From 20 to 23, they play every 3 days.
Yeah. He sat one game because of rotation in December as well. It was the Palace game that he came on as a sub.
Precisely so, but that was a little bit anomaly because I think that was extraordinarily short turnaround. I think that's less than 48 hours. But even then, I don't see him being able to play 3 games a week, so it might be a bit iffy.
Yeah. Also, like just generally talking, when you look at Vardy plays game, there's a lot of conservation of energy. Like he knows how to manage his energy on the field. He's not running around always. He's walking around, and just when he sees that Madison or Tielemans have the ball, he's making that run behind the defense. He's one of those old experienced dogs who knows how to manage his own energy when he's on the field as well. So that's something I just like to add when we're having that Vardy conversation.
That was the only thing that makes me worry about Vardy, but I could be completely wrong there. I think he could be a decent option still.
Your thoughts on Barnes?
At Barnes, I think there are better picks out there. To be honest, I still don't trust Rodgers because you have that guy under, right? You have a few other options. We have Perez.
In terms of minutes, he's there.
He is now, but again, now we are talking about any player we are bringing in now. Ideally, you'd have to plan to hold him for the next 2 or 3 fixtures at least. Now, as we are going about now with the fixtures so close, I think you'll be sweating on Barnes' fitness every week, or not Barnes' fitness, his selection every week.
He's played at least 83 minutes, and he's been subbed off in the 83rd minute only against Spurs. Outside of that, last 5 games, 90 minutes. So just
the option is there, but that's the worry for me personally. As a conservative manager, I wouldn't like to go there. I think they're better picks.
All right.
I agree.
James Justin, good pick.
Justin, in fact, is still a good pick.
All right. Okay, moving on to West Ham United, who have one of the strongest doubles in 19. Zoph, why don't you start and let us know about your new love and new crush in the FPL?
So the West Ham's numbers actually haven't been very good over the last 4 game weeks now. They've managed only 27 shots in the box in the last 4 matches and scored only 3 goals. So to put that in perspective, I think there's not too many chances better than Newcastle. Newcastle at 18, Palace at 20, West Ham at 27. In terms of big chances, it's also 6. So the attack isn't really clicking. They have only 12 shots on target. So this is all without Antonio, right? He hasn't started a Premier League game, but they have the potential there in terms of players. They have a good double, and they have decent fixtures after as well. I think they have Palace in 20, they have Liverpool in 21, but then decent fixtures after.
I think a lot of people have a dilemma between Antonio and Watkins at the moment. I think that's the conversation. Do you have a preference there?
Yeah, because I think Antonio is more of a talisman. then Watkins is, I think, and plus you'd expect Antonio to be on penalties as we saw earlier. And I was very happy that he played over 80 minutes in the FA Cup game, right? What that tells me now that the fitness part of it is out of the way. Now it's about building match sharpness. He needs now minutes because if the fitness was an issue, he would have probably played 45, 50 minutes only in those difficult conditions on a wet, soggy pitch away to Stockport. So I'm pretty confident on his prospect of starting both games in this double.
With 2 days away, the games are very close by.
I think so. I think he'll play 70 minutes in both because now he needs minutes. He needs minutes on the pitch to build sharpness. Now, he's played 90 minutes only, it was about a week ago. So he's had no midweek game, full rest. And now West Ham will look at those two fixtures. Moyes is a manager who targets these fixtures very specifically. He knows that these are the fixtures I need to win, these are the fixtures and I can afford to lose or draw. And there's no Halle.
Yeah.
They really don't have any second option. They'd have to play somebody else like, Bowen or somebody as a false nine.
Yeah, Bowen or Benrahma, I think those are the two options he has to play as a false nine in that team. Bakar, bullish on Antonio?
Yeah, I've always been a huge Antonio fan, and I really like West Ham's fixtures coming up. If I was buying one of Antonio Watkins, I'd lean towards Antonio as well. I think the fixtures this week are really good. Burnley at home, West Brom at home, and after this they have Palace away. The fixtures are decent.
Burnley, a good fixture. I mean, West Ham haven't been doing much in attack. I don't see West Ham scoring more than one goal against Burnley. Very honestly.
I'd agree. I think probably over the two fixtures, you'd expect 3, maximum 4 goals for West Ham.
Yeah, because even Big Sam is going to be parked. I mean, yeah, he's struggling against the better teams, but against West Ham,
I'd expect West Ham to score a couple of times in either game personally.
Yeah, 3 to 4 goals is what we'd probably look at. And with West Ham, keep in mind with Big Sam though, right? There's this thing when he goes away to his older clubs. With West Ham also, he had a bit of an acrimonious exit. He brought them back up and they sacked him. I think that when he goes to his older clubs, he might be a bit more aggressive than he would be to like one of the bigger guys.
siege mentality.
Yeah. And plus
I'm a little worried. I mean,
I think West Brom are rubbish, and I think Sam is out of his depth right now.
depth. Yeah, I agree. I'm worried though about Antonio. Like when I was just reading a little bit of commentary from one of the West Ham accounts while the game was going on, and Antonio looked absolutely terrible. Like you mentioned, he's just building minutes, but I'm worried about the 2-day gap. I'm worried about his fitness at the moment. I'm worried about West Ham's attack in general at the moment. But
That's something I'm more worried about than I'm pretty confident of starts in both. He probably won't play 90, but how good are West Ham in attack is my main concern.
Yeah. More on that. I've noticed the regression in their attacking numbers myself as well. But I think a very important thing to mention is that I think that Antonio makes a hell of a difference to the attack because he's head and shoulders, better above than Haller was. So I looked at the numbers when Antonio was fit at the start of the season, from game week 1 to 5, and when he was actually playing every game. And you have to keep in mind that West Ham at that point had really tough fixtures to begin with. And they had a really tough run. But Antonio in that spell was third among forwards for shots inside the box and big chances, while West Ham were fourth for XG, which tells me that they're a completely different team with Antonio in it than without Antonio. So I won't look at their recent numbers and too much, because I think that there'll be a far different team with Antonio in it.
it's also based on the formation change, right? They've lost Masuaku and they've had to change up their system. And ever since they've changed that system, they don't really look as convincing as they did earlier. So I think that is also a factor. I mean, when I'm looking at my team, I'm looking at getting Antonio in, but that's because there's no other options at the moment. He's literally the only striker in that price bracket who looks like a decent pick at the moment. But I'm just doing it because there are no other options, not because I'm completely convinced about Antonio at the moment. We don't even know how fit he is. So
fitness would be the worry. If anything, fitness is the worry with Antonio.
Yep. I just think with West Ham, the value is there in the defense. Moyes is a guy who knows how to organize his team. Sufal, Cresswell, we know what they've done this season. Souček also in midfield. Yeah, great pick. I mean, what was that stat that we read on Scout? So he has the most number of touches.
In the most number of attempts in the 6-yard box.
Yeah. So that's something that's sustainable, for 5 million, 5.2 million. How expensive is he now?
5.3, I think.
5.3.
Yeah. Great pick. I think as long as I was talking to FPL Irons, who's a West Ham manager, who's a West Ham fan, and he mentioned that as long as Moyes is managing West Ham United, Souček is always going to be a good option, a good FPL option, because he relies on that. So yeah.
And I
His
love
his
the
numbers of late have improved drastically as well, which is something I really like. Uh, I was wrong on Souček this season earlier on when Zoff pointed out that he might be one to watch out for. I looked at his numbers, and his numbers were abysmal. And I thought, no, how the hell can this guy be a legit option? But he's actually improved his underlying numbers by quite a bit. And you look at his recent numbers in the past 4 or 5 game weeks, he's getting forward far more than he usually was. His average position is right up there. And Moyes mentioned as well, a couple of weeks ago, that he actually wants Souček to get in the box and get involved and create, all kinds of chaos. So I think he's a very good option to have this week.
Would you have him over a Rafinha or a Lookman or a Saka? I think these three are competing with him for that 5 million, 5.5 million price bracket. How do you
I'm,
reckon?
s- I have to buy someone in that price bracket this week, and at the moment, I'm looking to buy Souček because of his fixtures. Personally, I think that he has the double, and the others, the likes of Rafinha, Saka, don't. So if I was buying a budget enabler this week, I would definitely go to Souček. No question about that.
I need to make a similar decision. I haven't made up my mind yet, but yeah, I think these four are the candidates I'm looking at closely this week.
that I think Souček is the pick over there. The other guys might look exciting, might be more engaging to watch, but it's points you want on the board at the end of the day, and Souček delivers.
All right, cool. Let's move on to Manchester United. Just wanted to bring something to everybody's attention. Shout out again to FML FPL. Alon from FML FPL just noticed this and he's created this table. So, do we have the table uh, on the screen?
Yes, the table's up.
Just something worth pointing out, and how Bruno Fernandes's numbers dip when he's playing with Paul Pogba. Now he's looked at the shots per match, he's looked at the open play goals per match, he's looked at the key passes per match. The numbers when Bruno is playing with Pogba and without Pogba are drastically different. And just you can see the numbers. I mean, he instead of when he's without Paul, he's taking 4.14 shots per match, and when he's with Pogba, he's taking 2.5 shots per match. When he's without Pogba, he's making 3.43 key passes per match. And with Pogba, he's making 2.5 key passes per match. So his XG per 90 minutes is 0.14 with Pogba and it's 0.40 without Pogba. His XA falls from 0.55 per match to 0.19 per match. Now, there's a drastic difference. And I don't really know why this is happening, because when I'm looking at the game, Bruno's positioning isn't changing that drastically. Yeah, he's sitting deeper, but I don't think he's sitting that deeper. So I'm not exactly sure whether it's in normally, but those are some drastic numbers out there. And it's just worth paying attention for. I'm not saying that you need to sell Bruno Fernandes, but if he's playing with Pogba and Pogba is in top form at the moment, you just need to watch out and whether when you're making that captaincy decision when it comes to Manchester United. That's all I want to say about this.
I agree. So I don't think Bruno is in the discussion for captaincy this week anyway, right? Because we're all worried about him picking up the fifth yellow card
Yep.
against
Yep.
Liverpool.
That's just the only thing worth mentioning. Anything to add, Bakar, when it comes to United?
Yeah, I did a similar piece on Bruno with and without Pogba starting, and it's worth pointing out that the stats are extremely extraordinary. The disparity is huge. Without Pogba, he's averaging 87 minutes per big chance created, which falls to 230 minutes per big chance created when Pogba is playing. Similarly, the minutes per big chance they've fall from 76.4 without Pogba to 173 with Pogba. So I mean, the fall in numbers is absolutely huge. With Pogba, I don't really think Bruno is as reliable a captaincy option as he is without Pogba in the team, because he's the main talisman then.
Yeah. From a system perspective, also, United have two systems. When we're playing against a deep block, we generally have Pogba and Matic sitting deep in midfield with Bruno, Rash, Tony, and one more playing further up. Right now, it's Cavani. And when we're playing against tougher opposition, which is what I'm expecting against Liverpool, Fred and McTominay are sitting midfielders, and Pogba, since the last 3 or 4 games against tougher opposition, he started playing on that left hand side with Rashford moving on the right hand side and Tony up front. So that just makes me wonder, because this numbers that Bruno has, they're consistent in both systems, which doesn't make sense. In my opinion, if he's playing with Pogba, with Fred and McTominay, sitting deep, his numbers should be good. So I can't wrap my head around it quite as much yet, but it's just something worth paying attention to. That's all.
I'm still gutted
But
about the Maguire disallowed goal. I can't get over it.
I had Martial. I bought him in, thinking he'd be a great differential. He had a few opportunities, but that was infuriating, watching him miss chance after chance.
Yeah. I think
I don't have anything else to add on United. I just think Rashford, Martial, they continue to be, good options going forward. United have Sheffield at home in game week 20, so they're good holds, long-term holds. I won't be selling them. Then again, the only two players I'd be selling them are the likes of Salah and De Bruyne. I fear no other route to them. But yeah, if you don't have any other pressing issues, I see no reason to sell.
And just one thing I want to mention: watch out for Martial's injury news. I just read today; it doesn't look as bad as it was earlier deemed to be. But if he's out for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks or something of that sort, I like the next three fixture bracket. I think Cavani is a really good punt at 7.8 million. I thought he was in and around most of the action in the game against Burnley as well. And I think 7.8 million for a United centre forward isn't too much of a price to pay. So just watch out for that Martial injury news. I think it's a good punt up front, especially because we're lacking uh, options in attack at the moment as FPL players, because we don't have many options under 8 million more legit options. So just wanted to add that.
Right. Let's move on to Bakar stats.
All right, so just a second.
We've had some audio issues, guys, in terms of the listeners. I'd just like to apologize. I don't know. I think Zoom is acting up, so we've had a bit more crackling than usual. I'd apologize for that.
All right, so I have three stats as usual for our viewers and listeners. The first one is on João Cancelo. So I posted this on Twitter last night as well. He's created 20 chances, including 4 big chances in his previous 10 Premier League appearances for Man City. And during that spell, during his previous 10 appearances from Man City, he's only second to De Bruyne for a number of chances created, of all players. Yet the surprising part is that he's failed to register a single assist. I think, needless to say, he's a great option to have if you don't own him. Like Lateriser doesn't own him, I would strongly recommend buying him. I think the points are, they're genuinely due, and they're likely to come, and he's likely to go big. I can see a 15-pointer coming soon. The next point I'd like to make is on Mo Salah. So a lot of FPL managers have been asking about Mo Salah this week. So I run a comparison to assess the level at which he's playing at. I compare his numbers at home last year in 1920 to his home numbers this year. Because the next two fixtures of Liverpool are at home. So I thought assessing his home numbers would be a better sort of indicator to what might lie ahead and to assess the level which he's playing at. So his minute per shot inside the box is more or less the same this year at home and last season at home. But what's important to note is that the quality of big chances this season at home has actually gone down. He's averaging 105 minutes per big chance at home this season compared to 83 minutes per big chance at home last year. So that tells me that, that's quite a huge drop for someone of Salah's quality. I further dug deep into the numbers and noticed that at this stage last season, Salah had registered 9 big chances at home. But that stat has actually witnessed a 33% drop, which has seen Salah just register 6 big chances at home at this stage this season. So that tells me that despite the fact that Salah is shooting a bit more this season, the quality of the chances that he's getting at home aren't quite the same. So he's not as dependable an asset as he was in his previous years. He's not exactly at that level. His numbers are good in isolation. But it's not the same Salah that we're used to seeing at Anfield, because at Anfield he's usually an absolute beast.
I just want to add to that, Bakar, on that point of Salah. I did a similar comparison, I think, a couple of weeks ago, which we mentioned on the pod as well, where his conversion numbers early season were much higher than his conversion numbers last season, and which is why the numbers have dropped a fair bit as well in the past few weeks. There was some regression when it came to Salah's numbers, which did happen. So just wanted to add that towards that. That's all.
Sure. So Another question, which is very popular among FPL managers this week, is whether which West Ham defender to pick, whether it should be Kufal or Creswell. So I ran a comparison to assess who comes out better from the West Ham defenders between Kufal and Creswell. Both seem to be doing equally, equally. Both seem both fare equally for goal threat. But what's interesting to note is that Kufal is averaging 5 minutes per touch in the final third compared to Creswell 6.02, which tells me that Kufal has a bit more going forward, and he's cheaper as well. So I think I'd probably lean towards Kufal if I was making an option. Both of them tend to do similarly for creativity as well. So if I was picking one, I would probably lean towards Kufal.
I'm in agreement. All right.
Let's do
Thank you so much for
captains
the.
really quick. I don't think we can really do hot fix this week because there are too many fixtures to cover. So
Yeah.
let's just discuss captains. I think the the main debate really would be Salah versus KDB, right? This week.
Yep, that would be the debate.
What do you guys think? It's interesting now to read that in conjunction with the Salah stats you just mentioned, Bakar. Would you still feel confident captaining him?
Okay, so there are two elements to this. There are two aspects to this. A couple of weeks ago, when the fixtures came out, I was discussing as to how Salah might be a good, triple captaincy option even this week. Um, Having looked at the numbers, I'm I'm not so sure whether to punt on him as my triple captaincy option. I think KDB has a superior numbers, and if I knew that KDB was was going to play both games, I would definitely triple captain De Bruyne. But the only reason which is putting me off De Bruyne triple captain this week is the fact that he might be rested in one of the games, which is just an assumption, but it's just something in my head because he's looked a bit tired. Um, Salah, we know what he's capable of doing, and I still think he's a very strong captaincy this week. But I don't think I'd be triple captaining him now, looking at his home numbers, because they don't seem to be as reliable as they have been in the yesteryears, which is kind of putting me off.
And Burnley and United, right? I mean, they aren't really defenses that are there for the taking. I mean, yeah, when you're talking about Liverpool, that's capable of scoring 3-4 goals against really anyone. But you don't need to take into consideration that it's Burnley and United. That said, he's the best FPL asset in the game. So it's a close decision.
So
So I just want to read out some stats in the last 6 matches. I just want to state the factors that should be influencing this decision. In the last 6 matches, City have a 12.09 xG and Liverpool have a 9.84 xG. So City are the more attacking team at the moment. It's just that they're not converting their chances, and you can see that in terms of the amount of control that City have in games. But the big difference here is De Bruyne has been playing through his skin in the entire December period. So, like Bakar mentioned, we don't know if he's going to be playing both games because he looked extremely tired at the end of the previous game, like Pep also mentioned in the press conference. And the third factor, it's a small factor, but it's worth mentioning because of you and me were having this chat. And the first game is City Aston Villa, right? And you don't know what's going to happen with Aston Villa. I mean, there is a 2%, 3%, 5% chance that that game could not go on, right? You're not definitely assured of a double game week for because the Everton game's off for Villa, and this game is 4 days later. So just a little bit of worry there as well. That's in play for me. On paper, City definitely have the better fixtures, especially if they're playing against a depleted Aston Villa. So I want to know whether that game is definitely going to be going ahead before putting that captaincy armband on De Bruyne. I still haven't made up my mind between Salah and De Bruyne.
So there are two aspects to what you guys have said. I don't think De Bruyne is getting rested per se because there's no direct replacement for him in the squad. I see him starting both, maybe getting hooked at 60 in each, but I'm pretty confident of a start in both. I am more worried, like you said, about the possibility of that game being postponed. Like it's a very small probability. We're expecting Villa to have their training ground reopen on Saturday, but the problem is we probably won't have any further updates till after the deadline. So there is some possibility, a very small probability, I would say, but I think Salah is the one to go for, because primarily because of the rest. The Liverpool have had that rest period, and now that the clash versus United, I think it's probably one of the big. It always is a big game, Liverpool versus Manchester United. But because of the situation, the way the table is in, that game has taken on more significance for Liverpool. They've been watching you guys rack up the points, and I think they'll be out. They'll come out with a vengeance.
Yeah. Also, Thiago will be fit. That's going to make a difference as well. I think it's important to state the importance. I think he's a class player, and I think he's going to cause us some trouble in that game as well. I expect him to be putting his fitness problems behind him. So that's also something that's on my mind.
Absolutely. So I do think more triple captain is still a decent shout. If you're not going to bench boost, I think triple captain is a decent shout. But do keep in mind, City are going to have at least another 2 double game weeks. They have 2 fixtures that have yet to be rescheduled. So you could possibly use a triple captaincy in those weeks on De Bruyne.
As of today, are you triple captaining more?
I don't think so.
You're bench boosting.
I'm leaning towards the bench boost. It depends on a lot of things, the press conferences towards the weekend, but that's where I'm leaning towards right now.
If you weren't bench boosting as of today, would you?
I'll triple captain Salah.
Triple captain Salah. Where are you as of today, Bakar?
I'm on Salah captain for now. I don't think I'll be triple captaining this week. I'm probably going to be going chipless again. I might change it to De Bruyne. It's a bit of a 50-50 decision. I'll assess, if anything comes up in the press conferences later on. But I think I might roll with Salah, even though that I feel that City, they're likely to score more goals and that De Bruyne is perhaps a better option. I'm just skeptical of a rest. Otherwise, I think it's probably De Bruyne if it wasn't for the rest element.
For me, it also comes down to how emotional I get on Saturday. Such a huge game, I'd feel dirty captaining Salah against United. Genuinely, I think we haven't had such a big game, and it's all right to be emotional about such a huge fixture once in a while. So, and especially when there's an alternate option like De Bruyne. So, I don't want any ounce of my body cheering for Mo Salah in that game against United. So that's something that's playing on my mind as well.
That's fair. Right. Anything else to add? Okay, let's look at somebody differential now. Let's say outside these two, do you guys just pick one differential for me?
Captain?
Yeah.
Timo Werner. It was between Mane and Werner. I think those two and Vardy are the 3 good differential big hitters to have, I think, in this game week. So
yeah, I'd go with Mane as well.
I'm not as bullish on Timo as you guys, but I'd probably go with Vardy. I think Vardy's 2 home fixtures, Southampton and Chelsea. That's somebody I would look at if I was not captaining any of these guys. You want somebody to go against the grain.
Yeah, I'm happy we covered the 3. Yeah, I won't be surprised if he turns out to be the highest scoring player in this double game. Like, I genuinely won't be surprised. Maybe that little injury that Pep spoke about, which is why he didn't play in Sterling in the cup game, might be true. You never know. And we know about Sterling's potential, so I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if you're looking at it from a different point of view, Sterling's got his rest. So
did any of you think he was going to score that penalty? As soon as he took it, just my heart just sank. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. But also, if De Bruyne took the penalty, I wasn't very confident. He looked gassed. He looked absolutely done in the past 30 minutes. If he was going to take the penalty, I wasn't sure if he's going to convert as well, because he just...
Yeah, I was quite nervous about that.
Yeah, looking up to it, yeah. So, yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, seeing the silver lining, maybe you didn't get negative penalty points to run a captainers.
Precisely. So let's move on. Now, before we go to discuss our teams, as we have mentioned before, we have started a Patreon page where you can support us at patreon.com/FPL Wire. Our content remains free, and this is just if you want to support us. We would like to give a shout out to our newest patrons. In the Jimmy tier, Jonathan Cohen, Abhishek, Maulik Desai, Greg Babinetz, Michael Tilburn, Jack Steele, and King Kev. In the Omar tier, Drew Babinetz and Kevin Kehoe. Thank you guys for your support.
Thank you guys for the support. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for the support. Appreciate it.
All right.
So LR, your team's up first. I'll just pull it up here.
All right. For the benefit of audio listeners, I'll quickly take you guys through it. I'm definitely not bench boosting, so I'll just take you guys through my first 11. And as keeper, I have Martinez. In defense, I have Stones, Diaz, and Matty Target. In midfield, I have De Bruyne, Rashford, Fernandes, and Son. And as my strikers, I have Kane, Bamford, and Davies. Now that I'm looking at selling both Kane and Son because I need to bring in a Liverpool midfielder. So I played around with a few options. My option is to, and in my front eight, I own Davies and Burke, who are both non-playable. So I need to upgrade one of those positions to a seventh playable attacker, or upgrade a defender to to switch a formation to a four-man defense, like I mentioned to Bakar earlier. So my options, I mean, one of the options is just doing Kane and Son to Mane and Werner, which is the suicide high upside if I really feel it play. But what is more likely is selling Kane and Son for Salah, getting Antonio as my striker, and then either upgrading a Burke to one of the 5 million midfielders that we mentioned, or upgrading Ailing to somebody like a Chilwell, because I like the Chelsea fixtures as well. So these are sort of the permutations and combinations I'm playing with. Uh, and I still haven't made up my mind. I'm going to do that on Saturday.
I love how bullish you are on Chelsea
Do you
this
have
whole
Justin in
pod.
your team, Lateriser?
Sorry?
Do you have Justin in your team this week?
No, I don't have Justin in my team.
I was just reading the news, and there's news coming in that Ings has returned a positive test for Corona. So that's good news for Justin owners. I mean, maybe there's a clean sheet there for Leicester.
Also, a reminder to everybody who's watching: do not look at the price change websites this season. I don't think they're worth it.
Yeah.
Push your transfers to as late as possible. Just something I want to say.
You
Because
can't say this
news
enough.
is coming every day, every day. So I can't say this enough, and I just want to keep reiterating that point. I'm not against price chasing and all of that, but I don't think it's the play this season. That's all.
Yeah.
Agree.
Any preference in terms of the options that I mentioned to you guys?
I think Salah needs to come in, right? I think that's a priority.
Yeah.
How much cash do you need now to fund Son to Salah?
Uh, I have around 7.6 million for a striker if I'm selling Kane. So Antonio comes in budget.
Yeah, Antonio is the obvious one.
I think what I would do here is Salah, Antonio, and Souček in.
Yeah. That's the correct move on paper. I am flirting with Werner again because I think there is an opportunity there. So let's see.
I love it. I love it. I'm not going to talk you out of that.
Yeah.
So let's move on now to Bakar's team.
All right. So I have Emi Martinez in goal. Cancelo, Stones, Robertson, De Bruyne, Son, Zaha, Fernandez, Martial, Bamford, and Watkins. So at the moment, I have 8 double game weekers in my team, and 3 of them are single game weekers. I plan to sell Son and Zaha for Salah and Souček this week. I think those moves kind of pick themselves for a 4-point hit. That would leave Bamford as the only single game weaker in my team, and I'm fairly confident that he's going to do well anyway, so I don't mind playing him. Captaincy is going to be a tough call. It's going to be between De Bruyne and Salah. I'll probably decide tomorrow. It's 50-50 for now. On the bench, I have Dyer, Smith Rowe, and Kilman. Reluctantly, even though I think the Spurs are probably going to keep a clean sheet, but I don't really see any room for Dyer in my first 11. So that's my team.
Even Smith Rowe is so playable. I actually think it's a really good fixture for him. Smith Rowe, Newcastle,
Exactly.
such a good fixture. Ajay, actually, just on that note, I want to mention to our listeners that if you have Leeds assets, if you have Arsenal assets, and if you have Spurs assets, I mean, like we mentioned earlier, when it comes especially to the cheap assets like a Saka or somebody, unless you're funding like a big hitter, hold on to them. They're having a perfectly good fixture. I can see Saka getting a single or a double return against Newcastle at home. So just think about that. Don't be completely blindsided by the double game weeks as well. That's what I want to say. Go on, Zoph, your team.
Yep. So I've got Martinez in goal, Diaz, Maguire, Cancelo, and Soufal in defense, Souček, Bruno, De Bruyne, and Son in midfield, Bamford and Kane up front. And on the bench, I have Fraser, Foster, Saka, Dyer, and Davis. So the moves I'm planning here could go multiple ways. Now I want to keep one of the Spurs attackers primarily, and I think Son is a better asset to own in terms of value and in terms of explosiveness than Kane. So the moves I'm contemplating are Saka to Salah, funded by Kane to Antonio for hit now. So what this would do, this would leave me with Son and Dyer and Davis and Foster on the bench. Now Davis, even though he might not start both games, I think because of the COVID thing and all that stuff, he might get more minutes than he would otherwise. So we might get 2 to 3 points, and maybe he gets something against Newcastle. You don't know. Foster might not start, but I don't fancy his clean sheet prospects too much if he does start. But I can see a haul in there for Son. I think Son and Dyer alone could possibly contribute 15 to 16 points there. So I don't mind using the bench boost this week.
Zoph, how much cash do you have for a striker with that move?
If I want to upgrade Son to Salah, I'm actually only 0.1 short of that. If I wanted to upgrade Son, I was hoping Salah would drop. So that didn't happen. So if I wanted to upgrade Saka to Salah, then I have 6.6 for a striker.
And how much cash do you have for a striker if you hold Saka and do the move for Son instead?
If I hold Saka to the move for Son instead, you mean that I sell Kane, right?
Yeah, Kane and Son to Salah, and how much for the striker?
Then I can afford pretty much any striker in the game.
All right.
Because I only need 0.1. I only need 0.1 to fund Son to Salah, right? So I can afford anyone up to 10.9 for Kane.
Vardy's, Werner, not in your thinking?
Werner, I'm not going to go there. Like I said, it's too much emotional investment for me. So Vardy is somebody I have looked at, but I don't know. I'm not too confident in Vardy long term as an asset, and I sort of want Son in there.
Yeah, he's done nothing wrong to sell him, so I get it. Fair enough. And Arsenal fixtures after aren't that great either, right?
That's the thing, right? I do, for some reason I know Saka is good value, but I still don't trust him. Maybe today's performance might change my mind, right? This is recorded before the Palace game. If he goes berserk in the Palace game and he passes the eye test, I might reconsider.
Yeah, the only thing, we were discussing Saka's stats. He's matching the premium player stats at half the price at the moment. So we just don't know if it's sustainable at the moment. Worth watching for. I think Palace is a good indicator as a fixture as well in terms of how Arsenal perform.
Exactly. So all options are open. I could even downgrade somebody in defense to raise that 0.1, keep Kane in that aspect. So all options are on the table.
All right. Let's move on to the Q&A very quickly. First question is from FPL Euphoria. Is it worth switching out one double game week player for another, like Watkins to Antonio? Bakar, what do you reckon?
I don't think so. I won't do it personally. Just keep faith with whoever you have.
Agree.
Zoph?
I'd agree. But I do, it depends, right? It also, he's asked Watkins to Antonio, that's a no.
Yeah.
But it's going to be like a Rafinha to Salah. So Rafinha doesn't have a double, but it depends on the player.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's like if you're selling a doubler for a doubler, it's like any other game week where you're selling one bad single game week asset to a better double game week asset. So it just better single game week asset. So it comes down to the player, like you mentioned.
Yeah, for example, if it's like Sterling for someone like a De Bruyne, I won't be hesitant to do it.
Good point.
All right. Next question is from FPEL Pico. He's asking me if he thinks Rashford is still a good asset if he continues to play on the right. Also, Pogba delivering such good performances means he's very likely to start now. Do you think Bruno will continue to underperform with Pogba or just an outlier stat? Like I mentioned earlier in the pod, I'm not really sure about that. When it comes to Rashford, I actually really like the fixtures. I think Liverpool is a Rashford fixture. I don't think he's going to play Rashford on the right against Liverpool. I think Rashford is going to play on the left against Trent. He's done very well against Trent in the last 3 or 4 games against Liverpool. And I really like that fixture for Rashford. So he's a good fixture. And Rashford generally tends to do really well against Sheffield United as well. He scored a brace very recently against Sheffield United, and he's playing Sheffield United in 20. So he's a good hold, in my opinion, even if he's playing on the right. I think the Burnley fixture didn't suit him. He still came away with an assist. He's a good hold for the next 2 game weeks, in my opinion.
I'd agree.
The next question is from @the Cool Story. Prior to today's game, City's big chance conversion rate was an abysmal 31%, which I'm sure dropped further. Should we simply avoid captaining City assets until that number improves? What do you reckon, guys?
It's a tough one, really, because it's been, I think, the only game they really looked like. I think they've only scored 5 against Burnley. I don't think they've scored more than 3 against any other. They scored 3 against Chelsea, and Chelsea made the mistake of trying to come at City. I don't see any of the next opponents making that same mistake. So it's a fair shout. I think we can look at, De Bruyne as not a great captain option, but again, he could explode any game.
Yeah, I think the good thing is he's getting the chances. I think that's like when I owned Werner and he was missing chance after chance after chance. I wasn't too much because it was a good thing that he was getting these chances. Getting these chances is a skill. Getting these chances is something that's sustainable throughout the game. Conversion is something that will change based on
Exactly.
sharpness or form or skill set. So I don't think it's a bad thing that City are getting so many chances. That's just what I
Yeah,
think.
completely agree.
All right. Next questions for you, Bakar, is from Arjun Verma. He has 7 million for a midfielder. Does it still make sense to go for a Suchek as a seventh attacker or someone like a Neto?
Yeah, I would go with Suchek in that bracket, primarily because of his fixtures, and I think he's a bit underpriced as well. So why not?
Over a Harvey Barnes?
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
All all right. Next questions for Zoff. This is from Tuhin Deb. I think we've answered this. He's basically asking who would you rather hold, Son or Kane? I
Yep,
think all three of us
we've
are on Son.
Yeah.
we've done this.
All right. Next question is again specifically for you, Zoff. It's from FPL underscore Arv. Do you see Chelsea defense getting good again, or is James's injury a concern going forward?
I think James is going to miss some games, but in terms of defense, I don't think he's significantly better than Aspi in terms of defense. The problem is going forward. I do think defensively the performances will improve. Kante has suffered a little bit in the last few games. So I do think the defense will get better, but I wouldn't go near James as we've touched upon earlier.
Chilwell, Zuma.
I think Zuma is great. Chilwell is especially even better with Ziyech getting back to fitness.
So you don't see a problem with the Chelsea defense as
No,
such, right?
and the fixtures are improving.
All right. Cool. Next question, a pretty interesting one. This is from Yuval FPL. Do the advantages of forcing a BB now with hits, second goalkeeper, playing a single game week player, taking out Mitchell, etc., outweigh the advantage of game week 26 BB and holding expensive squad for latter stages? I think we discussed this earlier in the pod as well. Bakar, do you want to add?
No, I don't think it's worth, if you don't have a playable keeper or someone like a Mitchell, then taking too many hits for the sake of bench boosting doesn't exactly make sense. If you're, I mean, if you need just one hit here and there, that then it's fine. But like, if you want to set the whole bench that way, that doesn't really make sense. Don't force yourself into it.
I totally
Agree. And there's going to be so many mini double game weeks in play as well, where some by chance you have some assets who are cheap and have a double game week. It might play in your favor. I think we're going to see a lot of mini double game weeks as well. So you never know when a good time might crop up.
agree.
All right. I think all three of us will answer this one. Werner, Jesus, or Wadi for the double, and then the next few game weeks. Last question for the day.
I think Jesus. I think
Vardy.
Jesus can be completely tossed in the bin. I think it comes between Werner and Vardy, right?
Yep.
Vardy for me.
Vardy as well.
Werner for me. I just rate the player that much. I think he's that good.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right completely.
And he's going to play striker now. So
I hope you're right again. So I
Yeah.
never know with
Yeah.
lads.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
just
what needs to happen for that is Werner to start striker in the first game,
Let's go.
Chelsea to win 3-0, and then Lams doesn't change his team. Because we know that when Lams hits a starting 11, he doesn't rotate, change that team too much. So that's what needs to happen.
Yep, he's quite reactionary in that aspect.
Yeah. And that's what happened in the last FA Cup game as well, right? Where Werner played striker, played well, where Kai played 10, played well. So I'm hoping that this sort of trend continues.
Yeah, Kai and Werner actually linked up for a goal as well. So I'm hoping he's got decided he needs to play the Germans together.
Yes, he does
Yeah,
need to.
yeah.
I mean, you have to go for it.
Right.
Yeah,
Bakar, you were saying?
one last thing. I'd just like to give a shout out to you for showing up on today's pod because Lateriser was, feeling a bit under the weather. So we seriously appreciate that he took the time out to come on tonight's pod because we were determined actually to do this for the double game week and for the triple captaincy bench boost questions, etc. So I'm glad you made it possible.
Yeah, I think chatting with you boys, chatting FPL has made me feel better. So yeah, no worries, whatever. Thanks for mentioning that, Bakar. I think that's it from us. Any last words, guys?
Nothing much.
Yes, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Please, guys, please. It really helps us. We're at 9,500, just 500 more subscriptions for our 10K target. Get us there. Bakar suited up and everything. Come on, we need to do that. And good luck for the double game week. That's it from us.
Goodbye, guys.
Yeah.
See you on the
Bye.
next week. I think we will probably be podding again next week only on Thursday, right? Probably
Thursday or maybe Friday, because I think the Liverpool game is on a Thursday night, which is a pretty. Do we even need to pod on Friday because the Saturday we have an extra game now on Sunday, which is the Villa Newcastle game.
Hmm.
So we'll just probably revisit this at next week and take a call, and we'll just tweet about it.
Right.
You guys can just watch.
Have a good double game week, guys.
See you
See
guys.
ya.
Take care.
Cheers, guys.